In this video, there's no such thing as go big or go home. We'll be making 5 tiny buttercream wildflowers to welcome in the spring. Hi everyone, welcome to Weekend Cupcakes. I'm Susan. Let's start by creating a background for each flower. I have a large piping bag with an Ateco large coupler, and I filled the bag with peach frosting. Hold the bag over the cupcake at a 90-degree angle. Squeeze the bag and let the frosting balloon out. Stop squeezing, turn the cupcake and let the bag come off. Then turn the cupcake upside down onto a sheet pan lined with parchment or wax paper. Push the cupcake down so the frosting will bulge out a bit. Use an offset spatula to smooth out the edges. Let's repeat this process for the other 4 cupcakes, and this will go into the fridge for 10 minutes. The cupcakes are out of the fridge, and as you can see, the tops are not that smooth, but that's okay. I'm using a hot spatula to smooth out the edges and the surface. To heat the spatula, I simply rinse it under hot running water and then wipe it dry. The reason I want these cupcakes in the fridge instead of the freezer is because I want to spread some other colors on top. And I want those colors to blend into the peach, so the frosting needs to be hard, but not frozen. Now that the surface is smooth, I'm going to put the cupcakes back into the fridge another 10 minutes to harden the frosting. I want each cupcake to have a colorful background with some green on the bottom and either blue or fuchsia on top. Using a tapered spatula, I'm going to add a few small dollops of green frosting on half of the cupcake. Using my offset spatula, I'm lightly smoothing the green across the cupcake. For the other half of the cupcake, I'm adding dollops of blue frosting. Then I'm going to smooth it out with the offset spatula. And just keep spreading the frosting until you get the look that you want. So 2 cupcakes will have the green and blue background. 1 cupcake will have the green and fuchsia background. The 4th cupcake will have a light green background. And I'm leaving the 5th cupcake with just the plain peach. The cupcakes will go back in the fridge for another 10 minutes. And I know that creating these backgrounds is a lot of work, but trust me, it's worth it. Now that we've set the stage, let's make our first flower. So for the mini carnations, we'll be using the green and blue cupcake, the Wilton 2 with Kelly green frosting to make the vines and leaves, and I'm also going to use the Wilton 1 with this bag. We'll also use a modified Wilton 101. And I did this by squeezing the tip to make it very thin. Just to give you an idea, here's an original Wilton 101. I put a very thin strip of red frosting in line with the thin end of the tip, and the rest of the bag is filled with pink frosting that I made with Wilton's Rose Pink. Using the Wilton 2, make the stems for each flower. Just touch the cupcake with your tip, and then lift the tip off the cupcake while you squeeze the frosting out. When you get the length you want, just touch the tip back down onto the cupcake. If the stem breaks, just redo it. Let's clean the tip. Here, I'll pipe right over that broken one. No big deal. You can play around with the length, but don't make them too long. Now for the flowers. Hold the thin end of the tip up and the fat end down. Make sure both colors are coming out by testing it first. It took some time, but you can see that the red is finally coming out. Because I put a very thin layer of red in the bag, the line of red is subtle. With a clean tip, we're ready to start piping on our cupcake. Start by squeezing the center petal, and it should come out in a zigzag. Then add some petals on each side. The frillier you can make the petals, the better. I think the outside petals of my first flowers are a bit too straight. For the next ones, I'll try to pipe a bit more frosting out to get that nice ripple effect. There, those ones are better. I don't really have room to put a flower on that stem, so I'm going to remove it. And I think I'll add a small bud on this one. Using the Wilton 2, let's add some leaves. Squeeze a dollop and pull away to make the leaf. Just add leaves here and there on each stem. I'm switching the piping tip for a Wilton 1 so I can add the sepals. Squeeze 3 little lines under each flower, one on each side and one up the center. I'm also going to use the Wilton 1 to add some grass. Just squeeze little strands of different lengths along the bottom of the cupcake. And there you have the very delicate mini carnations. These next flowers are deceptively simple because they only require round piping tips. These mini lilacs will be on the green and fuchsia cupcake, and we'll be using the Wilton 1 and 2 with the Kelly green frosting and a Wilton 1 with the purple frosting. Again, we'll start by making the stems with the Wilton 2. First, I'm just going to squeeze out a bit of frosting. I'm doing this because when the frosting has been in the bag for a while, it tends to crust over. By squeezing some out and cleaning the tip, the frosting will be fresh and it'll stick to the cupcake. Once again, touch the cupcake with your tip, and then lift the tip off the cupcake while you squeeze out the frosting. When you get the length you want, stop squeezing and touch the tip back down onto the cupcake. Using the Wilton 1 with the purple frosting, pipe little dots. I start by making a line of dots to define the length and direction of the flower. Then I fill in the bottom by adding more dots, so I end up with a cone shape. Add a few more dots on top to give the flower some depth. Just repeat this for each stem. Clean your tip when you need to. Stop and look at it to see if you need to make any adjustments to the flowers. Using the Wilton 2 with the green frosting, add some leaves. Again, squeeze a small dollop and pull away to make the leaf. Let's add a few more here and there. Switch to the Wilton 1 and add some grass at the bottom of the cupcake. As simple as that, you have your mini lilacs. Now it's time for the most classic flower, but with a special tip that makes them super mini. For the mini roses, we'll be using the green and blue cupcake, the Wilton 1 and 2 with Kelly green frosting, and the special Wilton 101S, which is a very small petal tip. I have some red frosting lined up with the thin end, some white in the middle, and then more red frosting lined up with the fat end of the piping tip. We'll start again with the stems using the Wilton 2. With the Wilton 101S, start by piping a small petal, and then add 2 small petals on each side that overlap each other. With these super tiny tips, it's better to squeeze very lightly so you don't get a huge glob of frosting. You may have to work on the petals a little bit by pushing them into place. And don't forget to clean your tip often. Now we're going to do the leaves with the Wilton 2. As with the previous flowers, squeeze a dollop and pull away. Just have fun with it and play around with where you want the leaves. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now let's switch to the Wilton 1 to add the sepals and the grass. And just like that, you have a delightful mini rose cupcake. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, what if I don't have a Wilton 101S? Well, you can use a regular Wilton 101. Your flowers won't be as tiny, but the colors will be amazing because with a bigger piping tip, each color has more room to spread out. Up next, we'll make a nice bouquet of forget-me-nots on the peach cupcake. For this one, we'll be using the Wilton 224 with blue frosting, which I made with Wilton's Sky Blue. For the center of the flower, I'll be using a Wilton 2 with yellow frosting that I made with Wilton's Lemon Yellow and Golden Yellow. We'll also be using a Wilton 1 with dark brown frosting. As usual, the stems will be done with a Wilton 2 with Kelly green frosting. This time, I'll be starting with the flowers first. We'll fill about half of the cupcake with flowers. Place the piping tip directly above the cupcake at a 90-degree angle. Squeeze, let the frosting balloon out a bit, stop squeezing, and pull away. Sometimes some of the petals don't stick. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just clean your tip and keep on piping until you have all the flowers you want. Using the Wilton 2 with the yellow frosting, pipe a dot in the center of each flower. Hold the tip above the flower at a 90-degree angle. Squeeze, let the frosting balloon out, stop squeezing, and then come off in a circular motion. Now for the dark brown in the center, just squeeze the small dot on top of each yellow dot. Since we're making a bouquet with these flowers, the stems are all going to come down to the same spot. Using the Wilton 2, I'm starting at a flower and piping a line towards the center. If the stems happen to break, don't worry about it. Just keep adding them until you have a nice bouquet effect. I'm randomly picking spots under the flowers to build up the stems. Okay, there's one flower that's missing a petal right on the edge of the cupcake, so it's really noticeable. I'm going to make a fake petal by using the Wilton 301 tip. There we go. It's not identical to the rest, but it fills the gap. In order to hide some of the broken stems, I thought I'd try putting a ribbon on top of them. I'm using the Wilton 301 tip with the yellow frosting. Basically, I want to pipe a figure 8 1/2 at a time, then 2 ribbons down the sides. Okay, maybe the broken stems would have been better. So there you have my forget-me-nots, although I might want to forget them. Right. Okay, let's finish strong with a very delicate and dramatic flower. So for the lilies of the valley, we'll be using the peach and green cupcake, the Wilton 102 with Kelly green frosting for the big leaves. I'll also use the Wilton 2 for the stems. For the flowers, I'm using the Ateco 79 with white frosting, which I made with Wilton's White. Using the Wilton 102 with the fat end against the cupcake, squeeze the frosting and wiggle the tip as you pull it along the cupcake in a straight line. When you get the size you want, turn the tip around and come back down the other side. This makes a big leaf, so 3 of them should be enough. Put the cupcake in the fridge for 10 minutes so that the leaves harden. All right, I've switched the tip to a Wilton 2 so I can pipe the stems. Touch the tip onto the cupcake, start squeezing, and lift the tip off the cupcake. Then touch back down when you have the length you want. Let's add a few more. And there we go. Using the Ateco 79, I'm just going to squeeze out a bit of frosting, so I start with fresh frosting in the tip. Place the tip on the end of one of the stems. Squeeze and slightly pull up and over. Stop squeezing and lightly pull away. Clean your tip after each flower. Add a flower at the end of each stem, and you can also add a few more in the middle of the stems. To finish it off, I'm going to add some small leaves at the base to cover the stems. And your Lily of the Valley cupcake is done. There you have 5 mini flower cupcakes to welcome in the spring. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. See you in the next one, and happy baking!